Let's go.
You're listening to Making Data Simple, where we make the world of data effortless, relevant, and yes, even fun.
Podcast listeners, Al Martin here. I am having another great day. And with this day, I've got a spectacular guest, as I always do. It's Deepti Srivastava, who is the founder of Snow Leopard, founder and CEO of Snow Leopard. And this is a company that's helping enterprises connect AI directly to data sources for real-time access, no ETL or no RAG required. Some of you might find that shocking, and we're going to walk through it. That's retrieval augmented generation, right? I know Deepti has held roles within Google, at Oracle. Right now, she's helping companies rethink how data flows into AI, which is right up our alley. We always talk a little bit about AI. We just can't get off of right now. It's the topic of the day. It'll continue to be the topic of the day for some time. Deepti, thank you so much for being here. I understand you're from San Francisco. Is that where you live right now?
Yes, I do. Thank you for having me.
San Francisco, and you said it's the coldest summer that you've been a part of or something?
Yes, that's what I read in some report, I think a couple of days ago, that San Francisco is having its coldest summer, which I think it's always a little bit cooler than I need it to be or want it to be. So it's overcast and it actually rained, which is not a typical summer thing. So yeah, here we are, people.
So where are you from originally?
That's a very good question. I think I'm from San Francisco originally at this point because it's the longest I've lived in a particular place. But
that's fair.
The spiel is that I've lived in 10 different cities, initially raised in India, then moved to England, UK, and then moved to the East Coast, Carnegie Mellon, for my grad school, and then moved, as you do when you are in tech, moved to San Francisco because the Wild West was calling me, and I've stayed ever since. Frankly, my friends and family make fun of me because there is no more landmass to go, right? Like it's just after the Pacific Ocean. So like,
when did you go to the Wild West? How long have you been in San Francisco?
I think I'm coming up on 20.
Wow. Okay. So you have been there.
Yeah, 19 years. Yes. I have
19 years.
I have lived here. I have actually lived here. I'm not a new San Francisco transplant anymore.
So you must love San Francisco then. I mean, to stay there, even during the cold summers.
Even during COVID and even during the cold summers, yes. I actually love San Francisco. Haters will hate, but I haven't found a place. And I've lived in London. I've lived in Manchester in England. I've visited a bunch of cities. I've lived in a few metropolitan cities in India too. So Delhi.
What's your favorite outside of San Francisco? Because I know you're going to say
that question. Yes.
Yes.
London.
London. Why London? Tell me.
It's got a confluence of cultures, and it literally is in the center of like all of the different populations and whatever in the world, right? And so you just get to see more people of different types. The food is really good. The weather is so, but everything else about it, like I really like that sort of diversity and like the ability to walk everywhere. And I mean, we recently visited Barcelona, and Barcelona is an amazing city too, but London will always have my heart.
All right, fair enough. I got you.
San Francisco, London, and Delhi is the way I think
San
about
Francisco,
it.
London, and Delhi. Okay.
Yeah, whatever that says about me, I don't know.
No, well, I think that's great. Look, I'm a fan of San Francisco. I don't know why anybody would not be a fan. I think the food is fantastic, for one. Mm-hmm. Early in my career, I spent a lot of time there because there was a lot of startups that I'd worked with, and I was a coder at the time, and I helped come into these startups and code, believe it or not. So I spent a lot of time there, and it was always funny to me is everybody or many would come into San Francisco, and it's so warm during the day, and then so cold at night. The sweatshirt shops did a great business. Fantastic business.
So the first time I saw that, we went to Golden Gate Bridge, as everybody does, and there were these people. It was sort of 3:00, like you're saying. Like we got there around noon, and we're walking around, whatever. And then around 3:00, I see all these people like show up with these sweatshirts, like a sweatshirt shop situation, like makeshift.
Yeah.
And then as the sun set and the fog rolled in, like it was cold, and guess what? People needed to buy those sweatshirts because they weren't prepared. Like people from South Bay, like come to San Francisco and then aren't prepared because it's so hot. Like there's a 15 to 20 degree Fahrenheit variance between San Francisco and like 3 miles outside of San Francisco or 5 miles outside.
I know, it's crazy, right? Yeah.
So it's really
totally.
funny. Yeah.
That's why up in Napa, that makes Napa great for growing grapes because of the way the environment is, or the temperature variation is.
Yeah.
Well, you do not look like you'd be old enough to be at one place for 20 years. So
you're very kind.
you've got that going.
And your listeners can't verify because like you're in the States, so whatever.
Oh, they're going to look you up now. They're going to say, "Wait a second, who's Deepti Srivastava?" We got to check it out. Anyway, we just continued our conversation before we jumped on the recording. Please introduce yourself.
So I've been in enterprise data data infrastructure and platform building for over 2 decades at this point. I started in India. I grew up. We're in different parts of the country, and then I moved to England for undergrad. Did my undergrad in computer science. Back in the day, where I did a minor in AI, funnily enough, and it was sort of very interesting. We had to watch this clip of this movie called 2001: A Space Odyssey. It had this AI called HAL, and HAL was this like breaking the Turing test basically, and like can machines think really was the question. And at the time I was like, you know what, AI seems too far fetched. I'm going to go into something that I can actually contribute to, which is distributed systems, and that brought me to grad school at Carnegie Mellon in Pittsburgh. And me and my cohort, I feel sort of both humbled and proud to say this, but we were researching grid computing and distributed fault tolerant systems and high availability at the time. And so I feel like me and my cohort built what is now cloud and sort of cloud computing. But this is back in the day. And then, as I was telling you, while I was doing research, a couple of things. One was like, I really wanted to apply what I was learning to real life, because I got into technology because of the sort of tremendous impact it can have on people's lives, right? When applied correctly, it's game changing. And I saw that both in India and in England, like when cell phones came about, you just skip over the let's get the landline connection phase completely. And like there are street vendors that can sort of talk to other friends through mobile phones to figure out what the market rate of like tomatoes is. Tomatoes is a perishable product, so you have to sell it. You can't just like wait for the best bid. So that enabled a whole set of people to actually get fair market rate by like just collaborating and connecting with other people, right? So it's just a small side note on technology and its impact on people. And that's sort of what I got into technology for. So I wanted to move out of research and actually apply what we were doing in sort of university settings. So went to Oracle as a distributed systems engineer. I worked in the Oracle database kernel. DB2 from IBM was the other competitor situation at the time.
Yes, I like it. Okay.
Coupling facilities, if you remember what that is, were like sort of distributed locking in IBM DB2 machines. And I was part of the distributed lock manager team. My job was to make sure that the Oracle rack instance was up and running all the time. That brought me to Google to build and run this product called Spanner, which is a globally distributed transactional database. And I was its founding PM, first internally and then taking it externally on Google Cloud. That was the rest of my journey. So switched from pure engineering to sort of product management. And from there, I went to this company called Observable, which was higher up in the stack. It's a BI data analytics, data visualization tool. I was head of product, and my job was to figure out how to make this into from a 0 to 1 like sort of product, right? Like commercialize it. As I said, like I've seen data being used across transformations, digital transformations, from like single host databases to globally distributed databases to individual silos to like mobile technologies, et cetera. And that's kind of what brought me to breakthroughs of Gen AI. I was like, oh, this is not my mother's AI. This is not my AI. This is a platform shift. And let me see what's going on.
Of course. Let me say this one thing. I do think world travel is beneficial in so many ways. The predominant way I would say is learning. I do a lot of world travel and you get to learn a lot. And from a technology shift standpoint, which is interesting to me, you learn a lot about technologies going to different countries. You kind of alluded to it before. Back in the day, you would think that like the US would always lead innovation. And in most cases we do, but like you made a good reference. I remember going to India of all places.
Yeah.
And their telephony and their phones, it was amazing at the time.
Yeah, they leapfrog in technology and innovation.
Yeah, because, I mean, you think about it, because why would that happen? Because when, our landlines were so good that we didn't need to move that fast. You go over there and go, oh, the art of the possible. I mean, it's no different than, everybody was paying by Apple Pay and stuff like that long before the US was. I'd go to another country and they'd be coming to my table with the receipt. Now they do that everywhere. But at the time I was like, they don't even do that in the US. Anyway, it's just the way innovation travels. Yeah.
That's very true. Again, when I went to Europe, like they had the chip system before we did in the US. And I was like, oh, so I don't need to go and like get what is this? And then you go to India again, because necessity is the mother of invention in a lot of cases, or the art of the possible. Like the Tap Pay and Google Pay and UPI and all those things were like ubiquitous there, like years before they were ubiquitous here. They're still not ubiquitous here, I would say. But that was just eye-opening. There are like street hawkers in other countries that will take Venmo. I am not like, it just like, really, I'm not kidding. Like it was just the most, somebody showed us a balloon and was like, yeah, you can Venmo me. I'm like, what?
All right. So you decided to start your own company.
That's right.
Right? Why would you do that? You were part of Google. You've got this safety net, and now you're just going to venture off and start your own company?
That's right. That's the right way to put it too. So I really am not one of those people that was like, hey, I'm going to start a company for the sake of starting a company. Like, I'm really not interested in sort of the bro culture. I'm in San Francisco, therefore I must start a company and become a founder. Like, I was actually like, I can have a lot more, and I did. I have a lot more impact working on Spanner and Oracle before that. Those are all billion user plus companies. And what we were doing, what I was doing, what our team was doing really had tremendous impact. And so I think one question is, once you've done that, like, where do you go, right? Because everything else seems, even with Observable, like building a company I joined Observable during COVID, so 2020 to 2022. Which was a very interesting time to be in a startup. I loved working with the team. I loved working with the CEO, et cetera. But then infrastructure is my first love. And so I was like, okay, this is cool, but I really want to go back to infrastructure because I feel like the most impact you can have is the lower down the stack you are. And the second thing, I was actually like burnt out after being at Oracle, Google, Observable, and building helping build a company, or at least a product and go to market. During COVID, I was kind of burnt out. I have at the time, a 3-year-old. And I was like, oh, what else? Like, let me just take a break and see what else is out there. And that's when sort of ChatGPT's first version came out, and it, like, Unstable Diffusion, the visual models, like that stuff came out. And I was like, oh, I just started playing with it because the first time I had time to just explore instead of, focus on whatever I was building. And so I started looking at that, and I'm like, as I said, like, oh, this is not the AI I had learned. This is no longer sort of build a natural language parse tree and like, figure out if you can break the Turing test or not. This is like beyond. And so just initially, it was just out of curiosity. I was like, hey, I have friends, again, that are enterprise people. And so I went and spoke to a CRM VP, head of platform for a CRM company. And I was like, hey, what are you using this for? I spoke to some fintech SaaS companies. Later on, I went and spoke to folks at Goldman Sachs and things like that. And they were all like, this is 23. So they were like, yeah, this seems interesting. We're trying to adopt it. But there's a couple of problems here. One, AI engineers or researchers aren't systems builders and platform builders, right? So the whole thought process around how do you put some new technology into a existing unique ecosystem is sort of a skill. And like, you have to learn it. And you can learn it by trial and error, but that takes time. And then the second thing was, when I looked closely, I was like, chatting with your PDFs is great. Any new technology is not going to have impact unless it's part of the critical path of businesses and decision making. And how do you do that? Most of the time, that data is locked away in, lo and behold, the systems that I have built for 20 years, right? Like in databases, SQL databases, document databases, but mostly like structured operational data sources. And so if you cannot connect this new tool with your operational data sources, which help you make decisions, you're not going to adopt this. That was my key sort of like, it just bothered me that nobody was looking at it. And initially I thought, oh, Google will solve it, Databricks will solve it, whatever. And then I was like, you know what? They'll only solve it for their ecosystems. But the problem is bigger because each enterprise, I'm sure IBM as well, has a unique ecosystem of technology architecture. And every even small to medium business has multiple data silos, right? And the data you need to make decisions to move your business forward is split across these. And so until you can like really get that data into your AI applications, into your AI systems, agents, I mean, I feel very strongly you can't really adopt the technology.
So is this essentially the story and the problem that you're looking to solve behind Snow Leopard? I presume it is.
Yes. Initially, well, there's also the data privacy problem that I think is interesting as well. But that's sort of when I got like really sort of like, why isn't anybody doing this? Everybody started talking about the $1 trillion AI market. And I'm like, how is that going to happen if you can't connect to your data sources? Like, it's not feasible, right? Unless I'm completely crazy and wrong. And maybe I am, I don't know. But that's how I was like, oh, I was compelled to look at this problem and try and solve it. And that's sort of the engendering of Snow Leopard.
So tell me a little bit about Snow Leopard on how we're talking about natively querying live data at runtime. I think you probably got everybody's eyebrows up when you talk about no ETL. That's understandable. But then when you combine that with no RAG implementation, then it's like, wait a second, now how's Deepti doing this? What is your point of view there? Yes.
So two things, if you allow me and your audience allows me to like build a story here, right? Like, so we built Spanner, which is arguably, and I will argue, arguably the best scalable data, like transactional data system in the world, database in the world. And when we built it, we were like, yes, this is it. As long as all your data lives here, you're golden. But the reality is everybody's data does not live in one system. So no matter how beautiful, intelligent, smart, lovable your system is, there's always going to be a data silo out there, right? That's like point number one. The way people solved it in the last 10 years was with the advent of scalable data warehouses, right? You just dump all your data into a warehouse, and then you query the warehouse and you transform it. And that's great for the purpose for which it was built, which is historical trend analysis, like some kind of like, prediction and analysis systems by combining a bunch of data sources, right? Mm-hmm. But when you're trying to make real-time decisions, you can't rely on stale data. When you're trying to make accurate decisions, you cannot rely on transformed data. So that's why ETL and pipelines aren't going to cut it when you want to do things like, let me give you an example. So if I need to answer the question, does Al have a criminal record or not?
Oh boy. I do not, by the way, I do not.
Yes. That's a yes or no question, right? That's a go fetch Al Martin, like look at their history and then say yes or no based on that. Mm-hmm. LLMs, Gen AI systems are ultimately summarization, classification, prediction systems, like next word prediction systems, ultimately, right? So they're not designed to give you like accurate answers. Secondarily, when you transform data, either by ETLing it into a lake, house, ocean situation, or by putting it into a vector store for RAG, you have changed the fundamental structure of the data. This is really important, right? Like when you ETL, the T part is transformation, which means it's not fresh. So if something happened in the gap between you getting it out of your source of truth system and into your lake house, ocean situation, you're going to miss that data, which means you cannot make accurate decisions. In the RAG case, you are taking data and destroying its structure and putting it in a vector embedding space. So again, Al Martin with one L, Al Martin with two L's, Martin with I and E all actually end up being, in most cases, in the same chunk, which means, again, you have lost both accuracy in terms of freshness and accuracy in terms of like precision. So in that case, for, when we're talking about business decisions, we're saying, do I need to replenish inventory? Can I hire this person or not? Can I, where do I need to increase inventory and where do I need to reduce this? These kinds of questions need real-time live information from various data sources. They cannot be built in a way that supports a Gen AI-based operational use case.
Well, then you got to tell me, though, or at least explain to me how Snow Leopard's intelligent data retrieval works real time. I get the ETL, but why are so many people using vector databases then today in a RAG?
Vector databases do a great job on helping with summarization, classification, and fetching of unstructured data, mostly static data, because ultimately you're ETLing it out. RAG follows a similar principle to data.
Yeah, that's true.
Right? But you're ETLing it out and you're putting it in a vector space with the assumption that for most cases, it'll be fine, right? When you're trying to put a pixel together after one pixel to bring an image, that's very different from a precision yes, no, or it's there, it's not there sort of situation, right? Guessing doesn't actually help you. And fuzzy matching logic doesn't work there, right? Precision logic, that's why we build databases ultimately, because our brains are fuzzy matching systems also, and we needed help with tooling that would give us yes, no, precise answers. So we're taking 40 years, 50 years of that research and we're throwing it out and saying, let's put everything in a fuzzy matching system. Then we complain that the LLM hallucinates. Like if you give it like garbage in, it's going to give garbage out, right? And also if it doesn't know what information to focus on, it's going to make up stuff, just like humans. So my spicy take number 3, if you take spicy take number 1 is no ETL, spicy take number 2 is no RAG. Spicy take number 3 is today's best intelligent systems, human beings, make wrong decisions if you give them the wrong input, the wrong data. So you need to go fetch the data from the right place ad hoc to answer ad hoc questions.
But for the remedial section, that being me, how are you really implementing this? Mm-hmm. You're not moving data. You're not using a vector database. I presume you're using some form of live querying.
Yes. Federation.
But then, so it's kind of federated, but we've got federated databases. So what makes yours different? And how are you handling the latency and some of the reliability challenges that live querying can bring to the table?
Yeah, so thank you for that question too. I think the point I was trying to make was these things, like I'm not anti-RAG. I think RAG is great for, as I said, unstructured and
that's fair.
And static-ish data, like PDFs, right? Your HR docs don't change all the time. Your support docs don't change all the time. Your legal docs don't change all the time, right? So I just want to be clear that I'm not poo-pooing on it. I'm just saying that doesn't work for live, like making real-time decisions. It doesn't work for making real-time decisions. And most operational decision-making relies on live data. That's kind of why I said human beings make the wrong. If I tell you that X is the president of the country, but Y is the president of the country, then you're going to make different decisions because you didn't realize that the president of the country had changed if you were in a coma for 6 months, for example, right? Stale data is dead data, in my opinion. So now answering your question, the key here is Snow Leopard is a combination of deterministic data retrieval. So we use a combination of LLMs for what LLMs are good for, which is classification, summarization, and general finding patterns, right? And we use what is known already, to your point, like actual deterministic query building and query validation.
But does that mean to say that you're not seeing changes? I mean, so these are more static systems than...
No, we are. So the way I can talk about how Snow Leopard work, I just wanted to tell you that we're using a combination of Gen AI and already known, data system building practices, right? Mm-hmm. Because I think the key here is everybody thinks the LLM will solve everything, right? Text to SQL will solve everything. And if we actually have a blog post benchmarking vanilla LLM plus MCP and Snow Leopard, and we're like 95% accurate for our customers' data versus vanilla LLM plus MCP, which is like between 50 and 70% accurate, right? Depending on how much data you want it to see. So I think the point is Snow Leopard achieves accuracy and consistency because we use sort of deterministic and systems building principles. Now, the way Snow Leopard works is basically we look at a question that you ask. So we take an input of a query, a question. What type of system is going to be the best to answer that question? We build the SQL query for the native interface in situ. Then we go fetch the data from that system, and then we return it. So we're intelligent routing to the right data source based on the question that comes in. We are building natively for that system. We are fetching data without moving it from that system. This is the federation piece. And then we're returning that data to you. Databases with federation exist for very specific databases. It's not an ad hoc situation. So for example, like I wrote the PRD with my colleague on federating between Spanner and BigQuery. Mm-hmm. Now, I'll tell you, because each system is so different and designed so differently, trying to use a single pane of glass, using one type of normalized way of doing something, denormalized way of doing something, actually loses that system's structure and accuracy. So trying to unify everything actually doesn't work. My personal experience shows that unification across multiple different data sources doesn't actually work. So the thing you have to do is actually federate, for real, actually go build for Postgres, for MySQL, for BigQuery, for Snowflake.
But what about latency in that equation? Isn't there latency you got to deal with?
Not for federation. Databases are very fast at fetching data, and we are pretty fast at building the SQL.
But you got to decide what. I'm not worried about the database, so to speak, but I'm looking at, hey, we got to make a decision. Oh, we're going to Snowflake. We're going to DB2. We're going to Oracle. We got to do this. We got to change this up. We got to rewrite the query. Look, I'm a database guy myself. And when you're dealing with two different databases, that SQL can be, if you write it one way, it can be loosely taken. If you Postgres database will say, oh, that's fine by me. You give it to another database and they say, we don't even understand what you're saying.
That's exactly right, Al. That's I'm so glad you raised this because everybody's like, whatever, it's just SQL and text to SQL will solve it. And exactly, one database SQL is not the same as another database of SQL. So this is why we have to build from scratch for that system. And we do that using a combination of LLMs and our own understanding of how SQL queries should be run, right? For example, windowing functions in one database don't actually translate to windowing functions in another database. And the latency here is more using the LLM, to be honest with you. It's not actually building the query or running the query for sure, because those systems, running the queries, the systems are optimized. So the real latency here is actually in the intelligent routing piece and in the sort of forcing the Gen AI piece to be accurate and not just hallucinate. So we have a bunch of validations and a bunch of query building and checking that, again, in benchmarking, it's like a micro millisecond operation. The real heavy piece in terms of latency is generally using the LLM.
What happens if a database schema or even the API changes mid-query?
Mid-query databases don't change. You either operate on a V1 version of a schema or a V2 version of a schema. But regardless, the point is, you're right, schemas evolve. And so our job is to make sure that we keep up to when schemas are evolving. So you can use systems like data catalogs. You can actually just use the database itself will notify you when the schema is evolved, right? So we maintain versions of the schema and we can automate that to actually just make sure that we're always operating on the right schema.
Vector stores often have, they're becoming more unified in their search interface. Mm-hmm. Does your system require more setup or expertise to run for the user?
The idea is we give you an API, then we take care of the rest, right? So we offer an API that's string in and JSON data object out. And ultimately, the aim is that Snow Leopard is best designed for using with AI agents, right? So we have to have a programmatic way of doing this. So essentially, there's an API that's meant to be a developer tool ultimately. So there's an API that you can call, and an agent can call Snow Leopard and get the data out that it needs at the time, right? So the thing we're trying to enable here is in a world of ad hoc needs from data, you should be able to fetch data from ad hoc systems quickly and accurately.
Can you give us like a concrete use case? I mean, by example, when would you say, hey, use RAG? That's the best solution. Like you say, you're not against RAG. I mean, it's you're still a fan of it. When would I use RAG? When would I say, hey, now it's time to use Snow Leopard under X, Y, or Z condition?
Yeah, I think if you're using PDFs, images, static data, you should use RAG. And if you're using, for example, if you're building a support agent where you need to answer questions like, where's my order? When was it delivered? Like those kinds of things, or where's my order now? Or did my order go through or not? Or where in the system is my order right now? Those kinds of questions, you should use something like Snow Leopard, right? And the question is, do you want to build all of this yourself? Because you can, if you really, really want to. Or do you want to just sort of offload that to another system and then focus on building value for your customers? So this is the similar argument to cloud, right? Do you want to build the cloud yourself using VMware and racks and colos, or do you want to just use a cloud service or a cloud provider and let them handle all of the management and messing around of things, and you build the system on top of it, the application on top of it?
How does Snow Leopard scale, given there's hundreds of data systems out there? Although you could make a case that there's predominantly X number of databases that are used predominantly, but there's a lot of data stores out there. And the second part of that question, what's on your roadmap? What should folks see in the future?
Yeah, great question, and you answered it, right? Like when I actually go out and survey the...
Damn it, I hate it when I answer my own question.
No, that's great. I think this is why it's fun to talk to people who understand data, because frankly, there are 3 systems right now that people really care about. Every time I ask people, do you want a fourth? They're like, yes. I'm like, will you use it? They're like, no. So the answer here is, this is actually very true for Salesforce. Everybody's very excited about Salesforce. When I'm like, okay, do you want Snow Leopard to talk to it? They're like, no, actually, we don't need it right now. But can you do it? And I'm like, yes. So I think the real answer here is scale and sort of setup challenges I am not worried about. We know how to do them, right? Building a connector is not hard. And in the world of MCPs, as they get more ubiquitous, it'll actually be easier for us to do that. The real challenge is in understanding the semantics of the data. That is what Snow Leopard does better than anybody else. That is what makes us accurate, right? So we come in and understand the semantics of your data, and we automate that so that you can get better than vanilla answers for quote unquote text to SQL, right? Like we're actually focused on accuracy and consistency for your AI agents.
Is there any implication to the world of AI agents that's we're heading to, unless you believe, hey, we're not really there's some people that don't believe that,
no,
we'll head in that direction.
AI agents. That's why we have a programmatic API. So the real thing here is, the world of agents is actually coming online now. And we feel Snow Leopard is very well positioned in terms of timing, because again, we offer an API that should be able to be connected to any AI agent. So in fact, if your listeners are building agents and really want to connect to like real data, like in their databases, like I would love to talk to them, right? But that's sort of why we are building Snow Leopard, so that in an agentic world, data access just becomes a matter of talking to Snow Leopard, and Snow Leopard connects to all of your data sources in the backend, right? Whether it's API or SQL or something else, right? Including RAG, because vector stores are also a type of data store.
Well, I got a few other questions as I kind of wind down here. But before I do, anything that you wanted me to ask that I failed to do so? Anything that the users...
I think this is a fun conversation for me, because I actually care about, how in the world of AI is data going to make sense? And so I think we're covering that. The other thing I will say is we're doing a few public launches so that people can experience this for themselves, because frankly the problem becomes, with enterprise data, nobody touches it, so you don't actually know how to derive value from your own data for these types of systems, right? So depending on when this goes out, like we're actually doing public launches of we have a Discord server where we have stood up Postgres and BigQuery databases that are open source, and you can chat with them through Snow Leopard. Now, we are not a chatbot, but it's just a way to showcase what you could do with your own databases. So I would love for folks to check that out and give us feedback on that. You can always go to snowleopard.ai and like Discord and, just start exploring data. But, schemas are open source. The data set is open source. So people can see here's a Postgres database and here's how it translates to just, I open Snow Leopard and start talking to it.
Maybe you just said this, but just to restate again, the easiest way to get started, just repeat one last time. If I'm like, oh, this is kind of interesting, how do I test this out? Could you repeat again? What's the easiest way to get started for the listener?
Go to the website, try it out on Discord. And if you're interested in using it with your own data, talk to me.
How long will that take, do you think? I mean, is it a 15-minute thing? Is it like, okay, I got to roll up my sleeves, whatever? I'm just trying to set the expectation.
It's like 5 minutes. You just log into the Discord server. Like, yeah, start.
All right, and you gave the Snow Leopard website. Any contact for you? Where's the best way to get in touch with you?
Deepti at snowleopard.ai.
Okay.
I feel good about people reaching out to me directly. I haven't reached the point where I need to put gates in between that. But we're actually looking for design partners too. And so if folks are actually interested in building with us, we'd love to work with you.
That's awesome. So are you bootstrapping this yourself? I mean, how's this working?
Yeah, that's a really good question. As a solo founder, I wanted to make sure, first-time solo founder, I wanted to make sure that there was validation of this in the market. And so, I validated with a bunch of folks who were trying to build these kinds of things. And then I actually raised institutional capital for two reasons. One, for validation and sort of making sure I could, what I was building made sense, right? The second, because I wanted to build a team where I could honor them and actually give them salaries and stuff instead of saying, hey, just believe me. I don't like that. I don't like
that's a little harder. Yes. So how big, do you mind me asking, how big is your team now? I mean, I know you're a startup here. I mean, this is, it's very interesting.
We are a very early stage startup. As I said, we're working on with design partners right now, and we're doing some public stuff. We have a team of 6, including me. So we have 5 engineers.
So did you do most of the initial code?
No, I worked with a couple of folks to build the original prototype.
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to be honest with you. I am not I do PR reviews, for example, and things like that, but I'm not as effective coding anymore than I used to be. And also I want to focus more on making sure we're building stuff that delights users, right?
So you're running a business, you're client oriented, and you're getting the builders behind you to make it a reality.
That's right. Builders that actually care to make a difference in the new platform shifted world.
So that's a great question in and of itself. How do you attract some of the best talent when you're saying, hey, you got to take a little bit of a leap of faith here? This is a very early stage startup. What is the attraction? I mean, how do you get top talent under that condition?
Actually, that is the only way to get top talent, is to say what they're building is cool. Because frankly, competing with OpenAI and Google and Anthropic is impossible, right? You cannot compete with them on sort of equity in terms of packages, right? In terms of salary and compensation. So the real thing we're doing, and this is why we've been able to attract talent, is help us make AI a reality for enterprises, for businesses. Because I don't think, there are two things. One, I don't think of AI as some the way I talk about it is I'm less worried about Terminator, and I'm more worried about where my order is. So I think of AI as a tool. And so for a tool to be useful, it has to be incorporated into businesses and into the way businesses work. It has to change the way businesses work in a fundamentally positive way.
Yeah, I like that. I mean, so you find the people that say, hey, I believe in what we're doing here. I want to be in some part of something big. And, if you go to, to one of the places you mentioned, whether it's Anthropic or otherwise, you're one of many. You're going to make money, but I don't know that you're going to get quote unquote rich in the sense of really doing something start to finish that nobody else is doing.
And, I also want to acknowledge, different people are at different points in their life, and they have different sort of dimensions that they want to optimize, and, more power to them. But if you started earlier with, and then you went and did a startup, and this is why, because I really care about this problem. I really think it should be solved the right way. Frankly, I think the last 10 years, this whole promise of put everything in one place and, this lake house ocean promise, I feel misled people. It's actually really hard for developers to maintain, manage brittle pipelines and things like that. So I really, this time, last time with Spanner and Google Cloud, I feel very privileged to have been part of that cloud platform shift. But this time I want to really do it the right way. I want to not be just a part of it. I want to actually build the solution, whatever that means.
Data swamps is what you're referring to. I got you. Let me ask a couple more. What's the most surprising part of this journey as a founder so far?
Oh, that's a good question. How much it changes every day. I know all this, you can read all this in books. It's very up and down and left and right. And you really have to check in with yourself and believe, capital B, believe. Because especially early on, now I feel, with a team, with what we're building, with validation externally, it's, I can see it. But earlier it was just me and this idea, and then, the 2 folks with me. And I think you really, really have to dig deep and make sure that what you're doing, you really believe in and you think it's the right thing to do. Otherwise, it becomes a really difficult path.
How do you know when to stop? Let me explain. I tend to get, what's that?
Sunk cost fallacy?
No, well, you might want to tell me more about that. What I was talking about is I get ingrained into a problem, and I don't know, it could be me, but I just don't stop. I mean, I just I could work all night, and I'm I gotta break. I gotta eat. I mean, and if it's your company and you got this passion,
Yeah.
I guess it goes back to my original question. How do you know when to stop and say, all right, enough's enough. I need a break. I need to be with family. And that ties into a woman in technology.
Yes.
And you said you had, at least I heard, one child.
One, yes. Mm-hmm.
How do you do it?
Yeah. So, I'm going to be honest with you. I only work or hang out with my family. That's all I do. I have no hobbies. Somebody else wrote a post that was very similar on this, but my hobby is to think about work, and my other hobby, or my first hobby, is to hang out with my kid and my family, which is very important to me. And when I'm not doing that, I'm thinking about work, because work is more than work to me, right? It's a passion. So that's number one. Number two, I always wanted to build a company that was sustainable, because I think of this as a marathon, not a sprint. And there's much to learn. Like every day, I learn something new. So just being patient. I'm not a patient person, but being patient with myself and like saying it's okay. Sometimes it's not okay, but like saying it's okay, and like making sure that my team and I are both ready and engaged for the long haul is really important to me. So how do I take breaks? I have to drop off my kid. That's a time-bound thing. I cannot do, like, most of the time I don't take meetings then. When he comes home, like, for the 2 hours, I'm going to do dinner. I'm going to do sort of, whatever I need to do with him, play with him, read with him, homework, whatever it is. And like, once he's gone to bed, then I can come back to my laptop. So some of it is just built in, and some of it is understanding if I'm getting burnt out, or like I get a headache or whatever, that I need to get up and walk around, because it's the more important thing. If I really care about Snow Leopard living, then I have to be in a state where I can push it forward.
What's the contrarian view? Meaning, what do you believe that's true that nobody else appreciates right now about AI, about what you're doing?
Yeah, anything. Thanks for asking that. It's a very pertinent question, especially when you're early in the market or early in the sort of building phase. The one thing is, I do not believe that reasoning will solve it all. I do not believe that AGI will make sure, like, I'm not saying I don't believe in AGI. I just don't think AGI is the sort of end all and be all, and, as I say, Terminator. Like, I actually believe that, as I said, LLMs and AI is a tool. I think it's fundamentally changing the way we live, work, eat already. But
do you use it every day?
I do. Like,
for what?
I don't know, for everything. I actually use Snow Leopard for our IMDb Discord channel, funnily enough, to answer IMDb questions. So there's a bunch of stuff that is true, like UX will change, UI will change, but humanity is humanity. And I, again, think of technology as a tool. Like, imagine in the 1800s when somebody talked about cell phone, that is 100% voodoo magic. Like 100%. I can call you and I can talk face to face with a video screen, like insanity. Like Jetsons, we have crossed that to some degree, right? Like, so I just think that technology, the difference between magic and technology is whether we understand how to use it or not, right? And understand how it works. And so, like, the light bulb was this magic invention. So to me, AI, the contrarian view is that AI isn't the end all and be all. The other contrarian view is like, you actually need to put an effort to build AI agents, like truly build agents, and that requires you to have real data. Like, that is the entire premise on which Snow Leopard is built, right? Like, whatever it is that we build, the product itself doesn't matter. The fact that you need to be able to connect AI systems to data about your customers, about your finances, about your inventory, about your supply chain, like, those things just don't go away. They need to be brought into the mix for you to be able to realize this world of AI.
Fantastic. Who drew you that you rock picture over your right shoulder?
My friend did.
Yeah,
that's really
fantastic.
I normally have a background, but I didn't. Yeah, he is a real believer in Snow Leopard, let me just say.
How old is he again?
He has now turned 8, but when I started, he was like, I guess 6.5. Yeah, he's like all in with Snow Leopard. He's like, yes, you can do it. So how do I keep going and take breaks? I have little Post-it notes for me to look at when I feel down.
I get some of those as well, by the way. Those are fantastic. My kids all wrote me, like, for my birthday, and I haven't even opened them all yet. They said open them at the right time. You know, different thing. Whenever you feel down, open this one. Whenever it's pretty awesome. It's pretty awesome. There's nothing that beats that, right? Thank you for sharing your story with us today. It was fantastic. You have incredible knowledge. And, a lot of times, or almost every time that I'm working with various startups, venture capitalists, whatever, I often ask, hey, what are you betting on? And they'll say, I'm betting on the founder. So if that's the case, I got to believe that you're going to be ultra successful, because I'd be betting on you too. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thanks for having me. And it was so fun to talk to you. Thank you so much.
Yeah, that's awesome. Very awesome for me. Hey, listeners, as you heard, you know where to reach Snow Leopard. If you could take the time to rate us on Making Data Simple and wherever you're getting your flavor of podcasts. But until next time, we'll see you on the podcast. Thank you for listening. Bye-bye.